Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everyone, this is Grégoire from Greg's Whiskey Guide once again. Today we're doing something different. I wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't found the occasion, and now we're stuck at home. Probably not all being able to find the things I'm gonna talk about quickly or in the near future, but it gives you an indication of things that you might be interested in to discover a bit more whiskey. This is an English video, but I'm gonna try to put some French in it, showing this. Very unprofessional once again, but I don't do editing, so it's the only thing I found to try to satisfy everyone, because I don't want to do two times the same video in different languages. It's a bit boring. Right, so what I wanted to say before anything, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating it over and over, but I think people have to know that knowledge about whiskey for us old whiskey lovers, or let's say people who didn't start with YouTube, for instance. No disrespect for you guys, but yeah, so, and mostly there was a world before internet, and even if internet existed when I started to be interested in whiskey, the tradition, let's say, for people who went a bit late on computer things and stuff, like me, because also I'm coming from a literary background, studied art and literature and philosophy, etc. And in university I continued studies about art, and also when I started to be interested in whiskey, yeah, and also I wanted to, sorry, I'm working in a library, public library, so I'm surrounded by books for a long time, and not only by whiskey books, of course, but fine arts books, which was the main thing for me when I was much more a painter than now, let's say. So yeah, this is a kind of biographic a bit video, so I hope it will not be too long or boring for you guys. But to put a long story short, I started my whiskey journey buying 1 or 2, 3 pocket books, guides, and it helped me a lot discover about whiskey. Of course, these were not necessarily in-depth books. They were not always super serious books. And I'm thinking of the first one about that. And it took a while since for me to find the more knowledgeable stuff from great names. Some of them are still there now, some aren't, unfortunately. I have 2 bottles on my table, 2 bottles that will illustrate the relationship between the need of information and informations you can find, and also things that could be exclusive and that you can find the most informations not on usual whiskey books, but on whiskey shows books or whiskey big whiskey shops catalogs, which is very important as well. And I'm surrounded by many, and honestly I don't know if I'm gonna make it in 20 minutes or so. So yeah, let's get practical. Just a few words in French. Voilà, je voulais dire que mon histoire avec le whisky a commencé par des petits guides, des petites choses un peu parfois superficielles, parfois légères, d'autres assez sérieuses, avant d'aller ensuite voilà, apprendre plus de choses. Moi, Internet et moi, c'était pas trop mon truc au début, donc voilà, ce qui s'est passé, c'est que j'ai plus mis mon intérêt, ma confiance dans les livres. D'ailleurs, je travaille au milieu des livres, en bibliothèque, encore aujourd'hui. Voilà, donc je vais vous montrer différents types de livres que j'ai. Ce n'est qu'une partie, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses, j'en ai derrière moi aussi. Voilà, j'ai une collection assez correcte, on va dire, plus d'une cinquantaine d'ouvrages et plusieurs centaines de documentations, voilà, marketing, etc., dans lesquelles parfois il y a des choses vraiment intéressantes. So, first book I bought, a very special one. This is a French edition. This goes back to 1995 for France. The original edition was going to be hard to find, I think. No, probably around 1995. Yeah, this is James Darwin. James Darwin is a guy who also wrote the big story of whiskey, but also the best of English and American humor. So this is a writer about humor as well as a writer about whiskey and other things. And basically there's a few pictures in there, not very much, but most of the text is this kind of things. And it was my first book about whiskey, so as you see, he gives stars to the distilleries according to its interest for him, and he comments an expression in particular, and this is so much fun to read. I had several laughs on Arbegs, which he doesn't like, and on Glenfarclas, which he likes. And in fact, this guy uses a lot of metaphors, and metaphors that are outside the whiskey world, I believe sometimes are even better to describe the character of a whiskey than very super geeky whiskey technique or whiskey vocabulary. And it's a great fun. I cannot really translate the French to the English. It's really special. It's something I had, 1995. Did I wrote on this one when I bought it? Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I forgot. Probably bought that around 1998 or 9, I don't know, when I started to buy my first whiskies. So yeah, it's the French edition Hermé, James Darwin, Whiskey Le Guide. Then I found this, which was still a French edition, Single-Malt and Scottish Whiskey. Basically, after an introductory and very old-fashioned pictures of juries tasting whiskies, basically it is one expression for a distillery that is studied, and there's comments, and it's very subjective, and there were things I didn't understand why they say that, and others I was more agree, but there are some very old stuff in it because it's late 90s book, and you want to see Glengarry as it was before. There you go. Or one of my favorite, Little Meals, very easygoing one. I still have a bottle of this, mind you. Mcclain when it was really something for me. Sorry guys. I can go on. It's endless. Small book, not a super reliable one, but interesting when you start. More serious, and we have to praise some women in whiskey, writing in whiskey, and they are, and I know some personally. This was the first book guide I bought with a woman as a whiskey writer, Helen Arthur. This was published in Evergreen Publishing Company in 1997, the French edition 1998, and it's absolutely beautiful book showing really everything essential to explain about a distillery. Nice pictures, tasting notes on this side, all the information you need, basic information production wise, the story also, and a beautiful picture. Some of these I've been reading while going to sleep, and it was so fun and so cool. Look at this Highland Park old-fashioned stuff. There you go, Ellen Arthur. I'm gonna put on the description not all the books, I have too many, but a few of them that I think could be still you could probably still found today and worth searching on secondhand. Like I bought a lot of secondhand books, by the way, on different platforms or stores online, shops online, where you can probably find them. Okay, gotta go quick because I have a whole bunch of books to show you. One of my early purchase also, I've been subscribing to the French edition of Whisky magazine since the start, which is 2004. You can see before me a few numbers. I have the whole collection, and I bought from time to time some English original, because the UK started Whisky magazine, and then the others copied a bit and changed it. But from time to time they did this, the first 10 years, 1700 whiskey tasting, which was basically not very sexy to read, but very interesting. The page is devoted to tasting notes, distillery per distillery, etc. It's very not sexy to read, but very interesting, especially because it is 2009 or something like that, 2010 probably book, so quite some old things. Very interesting book also. I think there's a more current edition, I have to find out. This one is from, let me check. It's a book from Brian Townsend, and it is 2000, reprinted, published 2000, yeah, 2000, reprinted 2004. Very, very interesting book from a journalist point of view of Scottish lost distilleries. You learn a lot. Scotch Mist, Scotland's lost distilleries. You learn a lot in there, and you see some names you have probably, some you might know, Port Ellen, but or Glenry Royal, which is a distillery I like a lot. But you have also, have you heard of Cleanston, for instance? No, probably, like me. Sunbury, Yarheads, Lochrain, Bowness, which is in West Lothian. What else? Towymore in Banffshire. Glenskiach in Easter Ross, pardon my pronunciation. Garston. Crazy. So after some introduction, you have almost every distillery that's closed since yeah, the ones he could find records about. And when I say closed, mostly before 1975, because recent books have a lot of information about distilleries operating after, you mean distilleries closed by the Diageo company or UDV in the 20 closed in 1983 to 1985, which was a big moment of closing distilleries. Okay, so these were the first books I have in my early days. And by the way, no, this is not a whiskey book, but no collection of whiskey books without some touristic guides. This one is in French. It was gifted to me by a company, I think, yeah, along with some gifts. It's another story, long story. Of course, I've been buying this for a long time. Malt Whiskey Yearbook from Ingvar, I cannot pronounce it all the time. Sorry, Ingvar Ronde, I think he's probably, is it Swedish or is it from Netherlands? I'm sorry. So for those who don't know, there are in-depth articles with some nice themes. It is not expensive, around £15. You can buy it online. Then you have in-depth, but for mandatorily it's summarized. So this is one distillery. You have basic information in the middle with the story, and you have the current bottlings and a very few tasting notes. Then you have interviews, and then you have very precious information, even if they're very short, of economics things and also distillery capacity. Very interesting. This is updated every year. Before I forget, I couldn't find, because the problem was, and is still, postal problems working very slowly during this crisis, so I don't have the latest, but it is on more than a wish list. It is pre-ordered. Latest books from Canadian whiskies expert, worldwide known, of course. This is David Kergomo from Canada, who wrote this beautiful book about Canadian whiskey. This is the second edition I have. We have some very interesting things. This map, for instance, of Canadian distilleries, but also, you know, there are some articles about whiskies you probably never heard of if you're not in Canada. A lot of very precious informations. This, for instance, is very interesting. So yeah, this is a very interesting book from David Kergomo, Canadian Whiskies. One of the funny thing about marketing, and too many things to say, I gotta be quick. You can sometimes come across this Dewarism. These are the aphorism or the good sentences about, I already talked to you about, but I just found it now in my archives. The wit and wisdom of Tommy Dewar. There you go. Minds are like parachutes, they only work when they are open. This is one of them. So like this, what do I have here? A lot of brand marketing stuff. Some beautifully pictures. They have money sometimes to do that, but let's put this aside to make some room. Never mind. Désolé, donc en français, ça va être compliqué. Je vais essayer de placer des choses, mais franchement, ça va être plus facile en anglais. Si vous avez des questions par rapport à ce que je dis en français, surtout, parce que je ne vais pas pouvoir tenir tout le reportage en français, mettez-moi des questions après la description, donc en commentaire, et j'essaierai d'y répondre en français comme en anglais. Il n'y a pas de souci. So yeah, I'll answer to French question on the comments because it's going to be too long. One of the biggest authors of whiskey who passed away a few years ago, we have to pay tribute to Michael Jackson. Again, not the soul and funk and singer, not the heavy metal singer as well. Yeah, it was also called Michael Jackson, a UK singer, but the author, of course, of this mostly. This one is the 5th edition revised. This is already the name of this is Michael Jackson's Malt Whiskey Companion. This is the full name of the and there he is, rest in peace. And what was very interesting in this, after the generalities, is the A to Z to single malts, so focusing more, of course, on Scottish single malts, and the rating system and the rating he gives is very special and very demanding. He's one of those critics, reviewers, also a beer specialist and writer, who was giving notes like 79, which for him are good notes, and the 90 and over were very rare. I have to say I envy this, but I didn't start this way. So if I was following Jackson's scale, I have to withdraw probably 6 to 8 or sometimes 10 points to what I rate. So forget it. After his death, under a collective patronship direction, Dominic Roscoe, Gavin D. Smith, and William C. Myers, all renowned writers, they did continue the story, and they were adding notes to this and with more modern bottlings. But it's the same principle, but it's not Jackson writing for every of these, so some people can be put off it. It's not necessarily his work now. Trying to keep another book translated in French from Michael Jackson, Scotland and His Distilleries, one of my early books as well, with some beautiful pictures. Not much tasting notes, more a history point of view, but let me find the section where it is. Is it in this one or in another one? I tend to forget some. Yeah, it's in the end. You have some tasting notes. Some of the bottlings are gone now, have to say. What else? Talking about big names. Did he work on this one? I'm not sure. No. Of course, the one and only Charles Mcclain, which is not only whiskey writer but a historian of whiskey. Honestly, one of the most important books for me, bought €1.50, oui, oui, €1.50 in 2002. I was 2002. What did I do about whiskey? Yeah, it's when I won a trip to Glenmorangie, mind you. And after this journey, you can see an old style of my favorite box tube, Glenmorangie tube. It's wonderful. I have to show you another time when I will do a rundown of Glenmorangie. And I will do it because I have quite some. Yeah, second-hand book, a bit injured here and there. Absolutely important book for me, explaining the history of the distilleries, but also the blending companies. Remember, people, if there were not blending companies, probably 90% of the distilleries today, or 80% or 70, something like that, would have to close because not enough people will buy their production. Part of it going to blends that helps them to survive, even if sometimes this is sanitizing cheap blends. Okay, yeah, St. Magdalene story, very interesting book. So the book is called the Mitchell Beasley Pocket Whiskey Book by Charles Mcclain, and it's I believe published, it's in English, was published in 1993. Can you believe that? 1993. There you go. Another very interesting, more summarized and pocket book, Whiskeypedia by Charles Maclean's. It is in publisher. Yeah, Berlin is the publisher. I will give you the information. So basically, it's tasting notes with some interesting information as well. I won't open it completely because I will break it. I know some rules about books. Trying not to collective book he supervised, very good, one of my favorite. It's a French edition, but there is an English edition as well. Very interesting, all kinds of whiskey survey with beautiful pictures. You want to know sometimes also themed special pages. You want to know about peat, everything about peat you're gonna know here. You want to know, yeah, I should have done a book, but they didn't want me to publish it, so I couldn't find a publisher. Otherwise I wouldn't be here doing videos. You want to choose a glass about whiskey? Oops, you have all these. You can choose your glass, and it explains why you should select this glass. Now you're into American whiskeys, you want to know everything about Jack Daniels, you're gonna know it. So very beautiful book, very practical, protected. Yeah, one of my favorite. It's in Prisma in French. While we are at big names, of course I have to speak about Richard Patterson, a book he made with Gavin D. Smith, explaining his story, very touching story. He's been working since the age of 10 years old, something like that, helping his father, and then he has become one of the best master blenders. Whether we have criticism against Dalmor or Dewar policy of bottling things, etc., and I have, believe me as well, this man is important. I met him several times and he explained his story there, and there's some very touching and very interesting also pages. This one about Campbelltown, we're speaking, Roy was speaking about it. Also for me, I am an amateur blender, you know that now, a blender in the making. And interestingly, in this book, goodness knows, not only his meeting with people, let me check, yeah, this is an interesting page. Let me find it back. The 1924 classification of malts and grains, compiled by George Ballantyne and Son, probably it says. The eagle-eyed will notice the mystery malt Glencoe in the second class. They rent it by class, but kind of whiskies. And you have the list here. Some of these do no longer exist, some others are still there. Very interesting book, honestly. Another book that was a bit controversial, but for me it is very interesting. It's a collective books, the 1001 whiskies you should try in your life. Weighty stuff. But you have some beauties in there. Try not to break the, yeah, Lochside 81, I tried it. You know, it's fascinating. They're not whiskies in every page. But when it's well illustrated, broché, you have this, you get this very in-depth article about the distilleries, the expressions, very interesting. This is a French edition prefaced by Thierry Benita. I'm going to talk again about Thierry Benita. Thierry Benita, for those who don't know, is the founder of La Maison du Whisky, which exists since 1956, and La Maison du Whisky is the equivalent, if you want, of the Whisky Exchange in UK. So a very huge importer and distributor, also a lot of bespoke store picks, often interesting for them, from many 60 distilleries and sometimes even 100 or more. So yes, this is it. I'm gonna put the link to this one. On more pocket books, and we haven't. I'm gonna have to forget some. Or pocket books. Let's go quick. one of the most well written, the most captivating books. This not much illustrated, just a bit explaining, yeah, a portrait of Islay and its whiskies, peat, smoke and spirit from Andrew Jefford. Very important book, very well written. Of course, latest and only, I think, a book about whiskey from Ralphie Mitchell. I spoke about it already. Why did I put, and yes, I have to speak about this guy after those two guys. Why did I put this on the table? This stunning rare malt selection, Glenmore Close Distillery, from Diageo Rare Malt Selection, because Ulf Buxrud, a Swedish guy, did. You have to check his website that is even more precise and updated data about fakes and genuine, and how many bottles and how many etc. of the rare malt selection, facts, figures and taste. Ulf Buxrud did compile everything he could find. It's in Quiller Press. You can still find it online. 2006, and basically I have to put that off to protect it. Well, I'm gonna show you because I don't want to injure it. So after some generalities and interesting pictures as well, yeah, cask being loaded at Port Ellen was that one over here. You have, let me find to show you, for each distillery that did produce a rare malt expression, sorry, you can find a comment, picture, tasting note. Sorry, I have to be careful not to damage the book. Yeah, there you go. So for this one you have even 3 pages. The distillery, the Glenmore Distillery. Some informations. Big picture of it. Tasting notes. Also structural elements and their respective weights. Phenolic, fruity estery, floral, aldehydic, malty, etc. Very precise description. An after dinner dram. I'm summarizing it because it's too long. So very interesting book. I think could be worth checking out. Let me put that as carefully as possible, and I will put the cover after. Okay, 2 other authors, important ones. Ian Buxton, in English and in French. Not the same book. Oops, sorry. But 2 books that are compiling 100 whiskies and commenting them. Yeah, this one is a bit different look. Interesting. Yeah, so bit of history, bit of tasting notes. This I won in a contest. It was very nice. Also some odd advertising, funny old-fashioned stuff. So it's a more a journey explained he made on Islay and the other islands, by the way, and he's speaking a bit of technique, but is also telling the story of these islands. Right. Of course, my friend, I have to mention my friend Dave Broome. One of the early books I bought from him. Let me check the. I'm gonna be. It was in Octopus Publishing, year 2000. So yeah, one of the oldest books I bought about whiskey. Very interesting. I was devouring that like crazy in my early days, looking for informations about distilleries. Here's Clynelish pages and very few tasting notes, but very on point, very interesting. Glenfiddich cask when it's snowing. And sometimes interesting notes about distilleries, expressions Ardbeg 17 that no longer exist, for instance. What else he did? I'm very honored to have this, the World Whiskey Atlas. This is a French first edition in Flammarion. An absolutely fantastic book, very in-depth. Is Glen Grant, and the only book I know about whiskey which has tasting notes about new makes. This way you learn there are differences between new makes. Even for people who are not very familiar to it, you can sometimes, with time and with experience, distinguish a new make of what will become a whiskey from another. Okay, I see it's going to be a long video. I apologize. I should have made two. He made a very controversial book about 5 different things you could add to whiskey, from Coca-Cola, from ginger ale, coconut water, green tea, and he rated them from 1 to 5, and interesting, and also cocktails recipes after that. Okay, I cannot finish this, and it's not finished, without talking about the most important French woman about whiskey writing. Of course, it's Martine Nouet, who lives now in Islay. And this is the kind of book, and I'm a bit pissed off, but I did a proposal some years ago before it was published with almost the same plan for the book. But in her experience, she has to do it. So it's not absolutely not something I mean she copied or something. No, it's just that this publisher refused my book, but which was the kind of book plan, let's say the menu of the book. She, with her experience, she has to do it, and it's very interesting. So there's a lot of in-depth things. It's very small written. It's only criticism I will make. She does in these 500 tasting notes, 80 favorite, and explained everything about the whiskey. This is a French edition. But also she, how many? I think probably for the 500 ones, yeah, there's a suggestion of food pairing. Can you believe that? 500 suggestion of food pairing. So very interesting book. There's even a bottle of wow here from Martine, who was famous earlier on in the French, by a French publisher. When was this one? It's early 2000s, I think. Sorry, I don't want to lose too much time. This was also a book about food pairing with whiskey, and with some interesting pages, too much light, sorry, showing tasting notes and also explaining what does that mean, Abela or Abuna, etc. What do the names mean? Very interesting book. Once again, a table and everything around has never been as much charged. Lots of interesting things, second-hand books, where you can find why did I bought in the early days. It's to be able to find pictures and information like these, explaining and showing what was the whiskey before the trend, the big time of consuming. Very important informations there. Some pictures don't need words. There you have it. No comment. Interesting catalogs from La Maison du Whisky with a lot of production information. This one was very good. 2007. I found a back. Yeah, Alexandre, who I was supposed to interview, but there was problems with technical problems. I was so sorry to interrupt the live and even to delete it, because we couldn't go live after 20 minutes of trial, while my guests for a French live were Alexandre Vintier, the co-author of this book about whiskey and also other ones. Yeah, I found very old catalogs which are moving, because you can see things that here they ask people in the know about color and taste. Here you have some very old stuff, beautiful bottlings I sometimes tried. An old Ball Blair, yes, 1899. Also this from Thierry Benita, a very important book he published in the early days. So many things. Where is it? Yes. In these kinds of catalogs of whiskey shows, you can find information about, yes, things you can no longer find, Japanese whiskies, for instance. So for Whiskey Life Paris, you get catalogs like that. And this is the way you can find, I'll finish with it. Oh, please. This is the way you can find information about rare limited editions, such as the Iron one that goes with this bottle. Beautiful bare barley from Orkney. They used to do this expression. It's the first edition. So yeah, lots of other things I would have liked to say, but it's gonna be a super long video. I might do another number another time, talking about magazines and other things. But there you go. I'm gonna put some links to some books I think could be important, hoping it was not too long for you and it was an interesting video. So thank you for watching, for being patient as 44 minutes. Stay tuned for other whiskey reviews, individual or twin whiskey reviews. There's one coming in about Abelard Abuna, for instance. And stay safe, take care, and see you soon. Bye.